Okay, guys. Christopher Sky-Sunderer here. Yeah, so a lot's been going on, and I wanted to finally get something recorded because I know it's been almost a month since you guys have heard from me. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Actually, I was in the hospital for 9 days, then they sent me home, and 3 days later I had to go back. Okay, and then I was in for another week. That's all a long story, but I just want to get right into the podcast today. I got to get this down. I've been trying to record for 2 days, and it's in reaction to all this impeachment hearing nonsense, and that's the kindest way I can put it. And for the last 2 days, every time I sit down to record, I get so worked up that I start saying stuff that's going to get the video taken down. So today, I'm going to give it my level best here to try to keep it in some semblance of civility. Okay? I don't know what level of doubling down the Democrats are on now, because it's been going on for 3 years. Hell, it's been going on for 4 years. It's not since Trump got elected. It's since Trump declared he was running. Okay? And no matter how ridiculous their whole story gets, they just keep doubling down. And now we're here. They're actually having hearings on the potential, the possibility of impeachment, right? And their star witness is a guy. I'll find this article. Who is it? Oh, some Republican. I'm not going to look up who it was. Said, Ambassador Taylor's testimony is just hearsay. No, you idiot. It is not hearsay. It doesn't rise to the level of hearsay. Ambassador Taylor's testimony is a fucking Chinese telephone game. Okay, I'm going to read to you. This is honest to God. This is the actual testimony. Quote, Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison that I had conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmouk on September 1st, 2019, in connection with Vice President Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting with President Zelensky. End quote. That's their star witness's testimony. In a nutshell. That's it. And as Jim Jordan pointed out, it's 6 people having 4 different conversations all in one sentence. This guy recalls that this guy told him that someone else told the original guy that, well, not the original guy, the second guy in the chain, that they had conveyed a message to this other guy last September in connection with Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting he had with another guy. What? I want you know what? Contest. I don't know what the prize is going to be. We'll announce the prize sometime later. Anyone listening to this, if you can tell me in one sentence what that statement actually says, you win. Okay? And in the case of multiple winners, like that's going to happen, I'll draw a name from a hat out of all the winners. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison that I had conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmouk on September 1st of this year in connection with Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting with President Zelensky. That sentence doesn't say anything. It's in reference to something else that's not provided anywhere. Who's saying what to who and who's remembering it and relaying it through whom? This is a fiasco. And this, when Jim Jordan, that video's going around all over social media, so I'm sure you've seen it. When Jim Jordan says, and you're their star witness, and Taylor smiles like the devil's own pet rat. I have never wanted to smash someone's face into the back of their skull more than when that piece of shit grins at Jim Jordan. I just, oh my God. This is how far the left is willing to go. Do you remember there was an episode of South Park where Cartman kept giving Wendy Testaberger shit? Like, he just kept messing with her and kept messing with her and kept messing with her. And she said, okay, fine, let's fight after school. And then he's like, oh, okay, whatever. But then he starts thinking about it. He's like, man, she might kick my ass. And so whenever they're alone in private, he bends over backwards, embarrassing himself, begging her to call off the fight. And when she finally does, then he's walking around saying, oh, she called off the fight because she's scared of me. Ha, 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 ha. And every time he gets caught, every time they end up alone together, he turns into this sniveling, shameless little shit, just begging and begging and begging. It's that level of shamelessness that the Democrats are showing here. Like, they would literally run into the Capitol smearing human feces over their faces if they thought it would help them at this point. Seriously, they would all do the most depraved dark web porn if they thought it would help them hold on to power at this point. Just no shame. No self-reflection, no introspection, no circumspection. Just please don't take away our power. Right? Now, I've talked about this elsewhere, not on the podcast yet, but they've done studies, and I'm not talking about stupid observational studies where this may be connected to this and could somehow possibly potential link. No, I'm talking about actual clinical trials, experiments, where they have determined that political power, that is power that is derived from the express threat of violence, affects the brain like an opiate. And it's actually, and this is literal, over 3,000 times, not percent, 3,000 times more addictive than the most addictive illicit narcotics known to man. Okay? That's why you get the authoritarian left becoming so shameless in their mad scramble to hold on to power. That's why you get that. Okay, now, where do the Republicans fit in? Because I know there are a lot of people, whenever you bring up how corrupt the Democrats are, the Republicans are just as bad. That's arguable. Personally, and I can almost objectively prove this, the Republicans are nowhere near as bad as Democrats. It's not true that both sides are equally bad. What is true, though, is that Republicans are complicit in the corruption of the left, if for no other reason than the decades of inaction they've shown to stop the left. Okay, so you've got, on one side, there's an old saying about Democrats and Republicans that once elected, a Republican holds office, whereas the Democrat wields power. And that's true, okay? But what people have got wrong, and I apologize, my voice is kind of coming in and out here, going up and down. I'm still kind of recovering. The thing is where people have got this wrong, the Democrat wielding power and the Republican holding office, is what's motivating it, okay? I'm a firm believer, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. I really believe that. And in Washington, you've got to lower those numbers. It's none of what you hear and like 10% of what you see, at most. Regardless of what Republicans say. I remember Dick Armey giving a a talk on Penn and Teller's bullshit. They had video of him saying, look, there's only one reason to levy a tax, and that's to raise money. Anything else you try to accomplish through taxation is a corruption. And so I was like, okay, all right. Taxation is theft, but from his perspective as a Republican, that seems like an earnest statement, right? It's just Dick Armey has used taxes to do all kinds of things above and beyond simply raising money. If you're a conservative, and I know a lot of my listeners are conservatives, Republicans are lying to you too. Okay, we got to draw a clear distinction here. You might be registered as a Republican as a voter. When I say Republican, I am not talking about you. I'm talking about representatives. I'm talking about government, politicians. Regardless of what a Republican says, they're all closet John McCains, okay? They're all rhinos. I think the only actual conservative in Washington that I really trust to be conservative is Donald Trump, and he's not even really that conservative. He's just the only one whose conservatism I believe is earnest. Okay, what little amount of conservatism he does believe, which is mostly economic, and even on economics, he's barely conservative. I mean, no one who believes in trade tariffs to the degree that he does can legitimately claim fiscal conservatism. But I think Steven Crowder called this Trump kind of got red-pilled. I think we watched Trump get red-pilled. Okay, as I think he knew they were going to come after him, but I don't think that, when he declared he was going to run, but I don't think the guy was actually ready to see the degree to which the establishment left in media and Washington went after not only him, but his wife and his children and everybody connected to him. And I think they kind of pushed him to the right by doing all that. But that's a topic for another time. That's tangent. Crowder said that, and I was like, when he said that, I was like, oh my God, he's right. Okay, because it's not true about Trump. There goes my voice again. Sorry. It's not true about Trump when people say, well, he was, and I'm one of the people who used to say this, and I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But having looked it up, I can say that this is not true. That when people say Trump was a Democrat his whole life until running for president, that's not true. Look it up. All you got to do is go to his Wikipedia page. You can see throughout his life, he's been registered as a Democrat before. He's been registered as a Republican before. He's been registered as an independent before. In fact, I think he spent the most amount of time as an independent. And he moved around as far as how he was registered. And I think he just looked at candidates that he liked. And if he wanted to vote for a particular candidate in a primary, then he changed his registration so he could. And I think that's all that was about for him. But whenever he was just kind of inactive or not doing anything politically, I think he just registered as an independent because that's really where he was. I really think the guy has understood for decades what Washington's all about and didn't want to be long-term affiliated with either party. Anyway, I'm still on this tangent. So going back to what I was saying about Republicans, no one is so stupid that they don't realize how complicit they are. None of those Republicans in Washington are honestly saying, hey, we try. We're doing our bid for conservatism and liberty. No, they're not. And none of them really thinks that. I don't believe that. I refuse to believe it, okay? They know that their inaction is one of the greatest empowerments of the left in its rampant push to move the Overton window and embed it into the left side of the observable universe. And then no matter how far left the left goes, they consider themselves the center. So they point at anyone who's even slightly right of center and call them far right. They'll even call leftists far right for not being as far left as they are. And I am telling you, the Republicans, by sitting on their hands, it's like Rush. Not Rush Limbaugh, the band Rush. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Inaction is action. If you're a representative in government, everything you do or don't do has consequences. And they know that. So don't give me this, the Republicans are just useless. No, they are of great use to the left. And I think a lot of Republicans are leftists who don't have the charisma to win left-wing votes. So they're just, well, I'm still going to serve leftist interests. I'm just going to get elected as a Republican. Because a Republican can be a mind-numbing, boring drip of a person and still win elections if they just state facts and signal conservative policy ideas. It happens all the time. How do you think that fucking, what do you even call him, sea turtle Mitch McConnell ever won an election? Jesus Christ. That guy's got all the charisma of a bowl of chalk dust. All right? And Lindsey Graham, this guy... People, I don't care what you think of the guy now. He's been a rhino his entire life. Right now, he's just... Trump is the new alpha male that he's falling in line behind. That's it. The moment Trump's out of office, Graham is going to be looking for somebody else to bury his face up the ass of. He's not even a beta male. He's a gamma male. He's an omega. It's all a fiasco. I think what's the only thing worth following anymore as far as current events and this impeachment and all this shit, it's just honestly kind of an interesting psychological study on how far into shameless depravity, how humiliated will someone make themselves just to hold on to their drug when that drug is aggression-derived authority. Because, man, this impeachment, Pelosi fought this impeachment forever because she knew what a disaster it would be. There's one little problem with this whole impeachment thing. There's nothing impeachable. At least with Clinton, they had him on lying to Congress. Their problem with Trump is that he doesn't lie. Their problem with Trump is he has a Twitter account, which has, and everyone makes fun of Trump's Twitter account, but the thing is, think about what it is. It's the ultimate fireside chat. This allows Trump to go completely around the media and speak right to the American people whenever he wants. He can do it when he's riding around on Air Force One. He can do it while he's sitting on the toilet. He doesn't have to call a press conference. He can just talk right to us. And that when you've got somebody in the Oval Office who's not a politician, and I'm going to continue to harp on this point, it's the first time ever in the history of the country that a non-politician has actually said, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for the presidency, and actually won. That's supposed to be how it works. But it's never actually worked that way. In the 243 years that we've been a country, it happens for the first time ever now, and no one reflects on that point? Nobody considers, man, it's kind of screwed up that we've never had a private citizen just become president. And they hate that. That's why they hate him so much. Because he's not only anti-establishment, he's not establishment at all. And was, oh, well, he's rich. Fuck you! So he has a lot of money, who cares? That doesn't make him one of them. His money came from the private sector. His money came from voluntary interactions. Anyway, okay, so I'm gonna get away from this if for no other reason than to calm down a little bit. We'll get back to it. So what happened to me? Well, the last time I talked to you guys, I had posted a couple of updates to the YouTube channel, just talking about, you know, my health was starting to get rocky. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some of these health issues. I keep telling everybody I'm gonna save it for the health vlog. The thing is, I don't know when I'm going to get to the health vlog, because there are a lot of moving parts to what I want to do with that, and it's going to take a lot, and I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I still want to talk to you guys about it, so I think I'm going to make it kind of a feature on Sunder the Sky for a while, okay? So everybody knows, because this is part of what's going on with me, and Sunder the Sky is not just about politics. Sunder the Sky has three focuses, okay? Voluntarism, or anarchism, which is philosophy. Okay, so there's a philosophy focus, which is going to delve into current events. Because if philosophy is not applied to life, it's useless. Then there's geek stuff, which I haven't talked about at all yet. But I'm way into comic books. Okay, I'm into all kinds of weird little fringe geek hobbies like role-playing games, and I'm going to get into that stuff eventually, I promise. Current events just keep getting in the way. And then the other thing is introspection. And I figure, well, I'm very introspective about my health. I have to be because I'm potentially terminal. Okay, so, I mean, they've been telling me I was going to die in the next 5 years for the last 25 years. So, well, not 25. It's been more like 15, but still, you know, and right now I'm all congested. My voice keeps cracking. I feel like a 13-year-old boy. But that's from having been sick. Anyway, what happened, just to give you some background on this, I suffer from a condition called advanced progressive insulin resistance. It's one of a cluster of symptoms I have. You can look this up, called Syndrome X. Okay, which is a combination of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and, a whole bevy of other metabolic conditions. Now, I've had this ever since I was about 12 or 13 years old. Doctors tell me I was genetically hardwired for it. Now, I've been a martial artist since I was a little kid, okay? And I have trained in close combat and martial arts training ever since, and since before I had this condition. And since having this condition, one of the things that this does, because my insulin levels are so high, when I was first diagnosed with this, they didn't actually diagnose me until I was in my mid-20s, but they told me, they're like, you're the worst case of insulin resistance we've seen at this clinic. And the doctor running the clinic later told me I was the worst case she'd seen in all of Ohio, because they had a database of cases at that point, because Syndrome X was still kind of a new discovery. And basically, my fasting insulin levels were higher than they should have been. You know, like, it's a point scale. I think your fasting insulin is supposed to be between 0 and 10. Mine was like 40. And then the test, they give you this drink. It's like a little 4-ounce bottle of really, really sweet tasting. It's kind of like soda syrup, like the syrup that they mix into a soda pop, right? And it's got sugar in it. And then they track your insulin levels every 15 minutes over the next several hours, just to see how your body responds to sugar, right? And when they did that, a normal person's insulin levels are going to spike at like 80. Mine spiked at 260, okay? And over the ensuing years, it just got worse and worse and worse. It got to the point when I was about 30 that the insulin levels that I would spike to after just having like a sandwich were so high that if you took the amount of insulin I had in my blood at that point and injected it into a horse, the horse would drop dead of a heart attack. It's just I had had this condition so long. They told me, you've likely had this since you were 12, since you were first entering puberty. And I thought back, and that's when I first started gaining weight, right? Now, training in the martial arts is a good workout, and I continued to train my whole life, even as I was gaining weight out of control. I got to the point where I was 100 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight, and I was still training all the time. And what that did was it's like you're training with weights tied on your body all over, is I have built a lot of very massive and dense muscle. I have mass and density. Okay, so I'm really, really strong. Okay, and that continued until I was about 38 years old. Just a few years ago. I'm 43 now. And then I had to stop. I just couldn't train anymore because my knees were getting destroyed, my lower back, even my ankles were starting to feel it, my hips, and I had to stop teaching at that point. So I've had these conditions all my life. And doctors, there are a lot of doctors who do not understand the difference between insulin resistance and diabetes. Now, a diabetic doesn't make their own insulin or doesn't make enough insulin, so their blood sugar goes out of control. Someone with insulin resistance makes way too much insulin, okay? Because what's happening with insulin resistance, your blood doesn't respond to insulin. Your fat cells do. It's still lowering your blood sugar like it should. But the blood reaction to insulin is what tells the body to stop producing insulin. And that's what's not react. Blood is what's insulin resistant. Now, your body is going to keep increasing the insulin until it gets the signal to stop. So if your blood is insulin resistant, your insulin levels are going to go way higher before that happens, before it stops, right? Because it depends on how resistant your blood is. What's the threshold that the blood will actually react, and then the beta cells will get the signal to stop producing. But see, it's only the blood, like I said, that is resistant. Everything else that insulin does still happens. And one of the things insulin does is it tells your body to store what you're eating or what you have eaten as fat, and it also makes you extremely hungry. This is why when you eat Chinese food, they say and you're hungry an hour later, right? Because Chinese, everything's served with rice for starters. Most things are breaded, okay? There are a lot of carbs, a lot of sugars, okay, or things that turn into sugars once you eat them. And that causes your insulin to spike, so you're hungry an hour later, right? Well, what this basically meant, with the insulin levels that I had by the time I was in my mid-20s, for me to eat a cheeseburger, like one of those little cheeseburgers from McDonald's, right? Just a normal-sized cheeseburger. Not a Big Mac, not a, it would be like a normal person eating 10 of them, because it's going to get stored as fat, more than would normally get stored as fat, okay? Like the whole thing, all of the calories, all of the carbs get stored in my fat cells. And then I get really, really hungry. And this is like starvation level hunger. My doctor at the time explained it to me like the amount of insulin that you've got after eating within 2 hours of finishing a meal is so high, your brain doesn't know the difference between what you're feeling and someone who's starving to death in the wilderness. It is the same level of hunger. It's like, for you to stay on a diet is like psychological torture, okay? So yeah, I didn't eat healthy. I had the classic American diet, which will do it to you pretty quick, right? And I was eating that, but I was eating a lot of that, okay? I've always been a big eater because of this out-of-control starvation signal. Plus, everything I was eating was getting stored as fat, so of course I was gaining weight like crazy most of my life. Now, I have, at various times, sought bariatric surgery, because they told me bariatric surgery, for reasons no one understands, can actually cure diabetes and insulin resistance. It's 4 out of 5 people with diabetes who get bariatric surgery, specifically gastric bypass, the full Roux-en-Y, and 3 out of 4 people with insulin resistance. It cures them. And I don't mean after weight loss. I mean after the surgery. They wake up in the recovery room after surgery, and they're just not diabetic anymore or insulin resistant. It just fixes it. Now, they have theories on why that is, okay? You have a network, and I'm sorry if this is rambling, but I'm trying to cover a lot of points here. You have a network of nerves in your gut that is complex enough to almost qualify as a secondary brain, okay? And all that network of nerves does is regulate hunger and digestion and metabolism. That's all it does. The brain in your head doesn't regulate those things. It's this nerve network in your gut. And they think when someone gets gastric bypass, there is a nerve that is right in the path of the scalpel that gets severed, and it just turns it off. And that changes that. What that suggests is that science has been completely wrong about diabetes and insulin resistance and what causes them. That it may not be beta cell burnout like people think that causes type 2 diabetes. It might be something else going on, that the neural network in your gut is just telling your body to do that. That it may be an action of your metabolism and not a condition per se, right? But that's the theory anyway. They don't actually know. But so I sought this out. I was like, you know what? That might be worth getting that done. The most recent time, all right, I always ended up losing confidence in the clinic that was going to do it. The most recent time, which I've only done this twice, but the more recent time was I was seeking it at the Cleveland Clinic. Cleveland Clinic is world-renowned for its bariatrics program. And I went up there. I was in the program up there for 2 years. Okay, 2 things. First of all, they wanted me to lose 150 pounds before I could qualify for surgery. And I'm just thinking, if I could lose 150 pounds without the surgery, why would I get the surgery at that point? Why wouldn't I just finish my weight loss off with whatever I was doing? Secondly, in all that time, in 2 years of going up there, I never once went up there and had them not screw something up. They would have something on my chart wrong. They'd have me assigned to the wrong surgeon or the wrong doctor team. They would have something about it. They would ask me questions they already knew the answers to, and not just the way that medical staff usually does that, But they would act like, well, why isn't that on your chart? And blah, blah, blah. And it's just, after 2 years of this shit, I decided, you know what? These people can't even keep books. I'm not letting them cut me open. That's it. And that's when I got hooked up with my friend Wes online, who I've talked about on the podcast before. He's been kind of my dietary and metabolic guru. Guy really knows what he's doing. And he got me started on a ketogenic diet first. And in a month, I lost 22 pounds. Then after doing keto for a while and losing weight at about that rate, he got me started on pure carnivore, just eating red meat. And I would mix it up from time to time with chicken, fish, pork, but I would just basically go with red meat. I would eat chuck eye steaks, ground chuck, or what Wes in Ireland would call mince. And, like pot roasts or round roasts cut into steaks. And I also do intermittent fasting. I only eat at 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. And it's like a serving of beef and water for the first meal, and then 2 servings of beef and water for the second. And in the second month, I lost 40 pounds. Just doing carnivore. Okay, in 1 month, 40 pounds. So carnivore is kind of where it's at for me, and that's what I've been doing. And I found out this most recent time in the hospital, because they were able to weigh me there, that since April, which is when I started doing carnivore. Actually, no, May is when I started doing carnivore. So since May, in total, I've lost 115 pounds. Okay? So yeah, I'm just going to stick on this and keep going because it's working. And the thing about carnivore is after 3 weeks, I would say, you stop craving anything but meat. Okay? Now, I've had moments, I deal with depressive episodes, I deal with anxiety and panic attacks, and sometimes I have slipped off the diet, okay, for a week, 2 weeks at a time. But I always get back on, and I'm getting better and better at staying on, okay? And, yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing. So, having lost all that weight, it was weird to me that I was getting sick again, like 3 weeks ago when I first went to the hospital, right? Thing is, I've been sick for 2 months, okay? I had a urinary tract infection, which I have an indwelling catheter as part of my health concerns, okay? Which is going to be coming out soon, finally, because I'm getting to the point where I don't need it anymore. But because of some kind of nerve issue, I was suffering from urinary retention, meaning when I was peeing, I wasn't completely emptying my bladder, so there's always some left. And that causes UTIs. That's actually the number one cause of urinary tract infections, right? Also, if you're retaining urine like that, it can back up into your kidneys, and over time, that will kill your kidneys, right? So they put in the indwelling catheter to deal with that, okay? Which has been nice, because I don't have to get up to go to the bathroom once an hour anymore. It's been great, but at the same time, urinary retention being the number one cause of UTIs, the solution to that, which is an indwelling catheter, is the number 2 cause of UTIs. Okay, so you're kind of screwed either way, because with an indwelling catheter, you've basically got a tube that goes right up into your body, right? That's a portal to infection, as they say. Well, I go in to get this thing changed every 3 to 4 weeks, right? And the last 2 times I've done it, so over the course of the past 2 months, this is before I went to the hospital, 2 months before I went to the hospital, my urine was brown and completely opaque. Okay, it was not transparent at all, and it was and when I say brown, I mean the color of dirt, not slightly tinged brown. The color of dirt, right? Brown. And I went into the urologist to get my cath changed, and I said, look at my urine. Do you think I could have a UTI? Because the thing is, UTIs can go completely asymptomatic. You don't feel like there's anything wrong. And he would just say, no, your urine looks like that because you need to drink more water. And I explained, I'm on this carnivore diet and I'm drinking 2 gallons of water a day. I can't drink any more water. I'll throw up. And he's like, well, I'm sure it's nothing. You'll be fine. The next month, urine was still dark brown like that, and opaque. And I said, look, could we please test my urine and see if I have a UTI? I don't like the way this looks. And he just gave me the whole spiel about drinking more water again. But he said, don't worry about it. So, you know what I did? I didn't worry about it. Well, fast forward another couple of weeks, and I'm running a high fever, and I mean like 104, 105, and feeling like death warmed over. I mean, I really started to feel death. Like, I felt like, you know what, I think there's nothing really I want to do anymore. And it wasn't a depression. It was just kind of like, maybe it's time for me to just lay down and close my eyes for forever. It was a deep down, like a bone deep feeling. And I was like, this ain't right, you know, and I went to the hospital and they said, yeah, you have a severe kidney infection and you've developed sepsis. Now, sepsis is lethal. Sepsis will kill you. All right, essentially what sepsis means is the infection has spread to your blood and it's gone everywhere. It can damage tissue throughout your body. It can even damage your brain. Now I'm really starting to lose my voice. I apologize. So they put me on an intravenous antibiotic. Now, since the infection started in my kidney, they didn't want to strain my kidneys, so they were only giving me one tiny bag of antibiotics every evening. And every day my fevers would come back. After 9 days of this, they decided to send me home. I got home and slept for 3 days straight. I got up to use the bathroom once or twice a day, and that was it. So I ended up back in the hospital when my fever came back. And then I was in for another 6 days, and this time they didn't pull any punches with the antibiotics. They were giving me a big bag of antibiotics every 3 hours for 6 days, okay? And they knocked the infection out. Okay, my urine right now is completely clear. Or it's very light yellow. It's, you know, it's, and I feel great. Okay, aside from what's left of my being sick now is just my head is really stuffy and my throat is kind of rasp. But that could just be the weather. Anyway, I don't want to go into a tirade again about the healthcare system, but I kind of have to. I got doctors who tell me everything's fine when I'm clearly sick. Until I get to the point where the illness has progressed to the point where it's going to kill me, right? And then, oh, well, you need to get to the hospital. Why haven't you had this addressed before now? Like it's my fault, right? Anyway, that's what's been going on with me. Aside from the infection and the sepsis, I'm doing great health-wise. I've lost a bunch of weight. I'm working with a physical therapist who comes out to the apartment once a week. And I'm getting mobility back. You know, I'm starting to rehab my joints and stuff now that I've lost significant weight. And you know, within the next few months, I'm going to be able to start training again. And that's great. That's a goal I've been looking forward to for years now. Maybe within a year or two, I'll be able to start teaching again. That'd be great. So that's where I'm at. That's what's going on. And I'm going to cut this short now. I know this is kind of a half-assed podcast, but first one back, and I'm still kind of, you know, I got a head cold. So I don't want to push my throat anymore. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.